Well, thank you, Dimitri, for that very kind introduction. It's very good to be here again in Buffalo, which is sort of a second home for me, poetically speaking. I think I read here more than any other place on the planet, so maybe I should call it my first home. I'm going to read both poetry and prose and begin with poetry, starting with something from starting from reading from Splay Anthem, which was my fourth book of poems. And it's the book in which two serial poems in which I've been working, Mu and Song of the Andumbulu, come together and become intertwined as what I've called two and the same. And the first poem I'm going to read is in the Mu series. It's 26th part. Mu, as in music, of course. Mu is a composition written by and performed by Don Cherry, the trumpeter, multi-instrumentalist. And the Mu poems very much pull on that connection to music. And this poem, called Sound and Semblance, initiates a series of poems, kind of a subset within that set, which is itself a subset, that draw on Stephen Feld's a book on the Kaluli of Papua New Guinea, a book called Sound and Sentiment. And there are a series of poems that echo sound and sentiment. And with regard to this story that the Kaluli tell about the origin of music and poetic language, it's a story of the boy who became a moony bird, M-U-N-I. So Mu as in moony as well. The moony bird is a kind of fruit dove, red-beaked, and the little boy in the story turns into a fruit dove, this moony bird, when his sister won't share her food with him. And this is a grievous violation of kinship rules in Kaluli society. And it led me to the proposition in an essay called Sound and Semblance. Sound and called sound and sentiment, sound and symbol, to the proposition that music is wounded kinship's last resort. This then initiates a series of titles: Sound and Sentience, Sound and Cerement, Sound and, well, there are a bunch of others that echo the title of that essay. Sound and Semblance. A sand-anointed wind spoke of survival, wood scratched raw, scoured bough, and of low sky poked at by branches, blown rush, thrown voice, leg bone, flute. Wind we all filled up with, caught in the tree we lay underneath. Tree filled up with wind and more wind, more than could be said of it said. So-called ascendancy of shadow, branch, would-be roost, now not only a tree, more than a tree. It was the bending of boughs we read about, Ibn Arabi's reft ipseity, soon come condolence, thetic, suff. We saved our breath, barely moved, said nothing. Soon come suzerainty, volubly afoot, braided what we'd read and what we heard and what stayed sailess, giggly wind, wood, riffling, wool. A Moroccan reed flute's desert wheeze took our breath. Floor we felt we stood on, caustic earth we rode across. It was Egypt or Tennessee we were in. No one, eyes X'd out, could say which. Fleet millenarian we it now was, whose arrival the wind announced. Night found us the far side of Steal-Away Ridge, eyes crossed out, X's what were left, nameless what we saw we not saw. We ducked and ran, rained on by tree sap, dreaming, chattered at by wind and leaf stir, more than we'd have dreamt or thought. We lay on our backs, looking up at the limbs of the tree we lay underneath. Leaves our pneumatic book, we lay on our backs, unceased reprise. North of us was all an emolument, more than we'd have otherwise run. We worked at crevices, cracks, convinced we'd pry love loose, wrote our names out 7 times in dove's blood, kings and queens, crowned ourselves in sound. Duke was there, Prez, Lady, Count. Pharaoh came later. The soon-come Congress we'd heard so much about, soon come even sooner, south. So there was a new mood suddenly, blue but up-tempo, parsed, bitten into. All of us got our share. Pecks, what had been kisses, beaks, what once were lips, other than we were as we lay under tree limbs, red-beaked birds known as moony what we were, heads crowned in sound, only in sound. And for the Kaluli, that's the birth of poetry, that to sing, to resort to music or poetry is to talk like a bird. The other strand in that series, that braid, is Song of the Andumbulu, which is taken from the Dogon of West Africa, Mali. It's part of their funeral music, music I heard first on recordings going back to the 70s, and was caught by a catch in the throat of the singer, a raspiness. And catching and impediment and transit or transition have come to be one of the recurrent concerns of the series, as here in number 52. Never not another bridge to cross, not before then so stark. We were beginning to be dead, it seemed, sought silence's counsel, wise in that way, leaning toward light, off balance. Had it been a boat, we'd have gone under. A car, we'd have slid into a ditch. It wasn't riskless we imagined we'd be, but not defenseless. A feather broke our fall. We breathed in. Light met the moment we left us breathless, lidless, looking up at the sun. It wasn't ecstasy as yet, but we kept hoping. A feast had been set, we'd been told. A token rope let down from the sky, hung out of reach and began to unravel. Wind, what we took to be rope. On Lone Coast, we'd seen a runway of sparks, light bouncing off water, the sun itself drawn out, reflected on water. A carpet of sparks inviting flight. Rung wound in with rug, lit runner. Auspice, we took it to be. The bridge we began with vanished. If not a runway and a rug, it wasn't there. No way could we have walked it. We wanted it even so. A bed of hot coals it would have been, a carpet of scars. Bridge being what it was, we turned away. The two whose future we were stood at our backs, each the other's whispered regret. Locks, he announced, lifting his hand, touched her hair. Braids he saw lifting the boat he lay down in. Course he'd have run, boat being soul. Twisting a braid with one hand, she answered, hair, as if correcting him. Locks lifted boat rescinded, her other hand addressing his thigh. There we stood, feeling the buzz of it behind us, turned away, not knowing where we'd go next. It wasn't avenues we lacked, outlets abounded, avenues availed all around. None were so lit as the bridge we turned away from. Light's white gleam wove no rug of water. No such whisper of soul tugged our feet. Lift,